about the bee asking in the mini bee story, who wants to play with me, and giving excuses why you can't play together. Here's some of the lower key stage 2 stories that we have to offer. I think some of you might be using these already, and some of you might find the Aliens Easter egg hunt a really novel way of approaching Easter this year with your Year 4s. It sits in Year 4, and I'm sure that some of you will already have used the masks in the Carnival of Animals at the bottom, where we explore the story of the Carnival of Animals with the music that's linked with it. And here's the example of our upper key stage 2 stories. Our upper key stage 2 stories, there's quite a few stories that include our alien family, and we're finding that at the moment as well, of course, that the unicorns that we created in the Dragon and Unicorn webinar has led teachers to be putting that also into the work they're doing in upper key stage 2. And remember that the stories are there to be a base from which to be active and creative in teaching and learning. And also please remember that, for example, with the alien family stories, it's an imaginative setting, but it's an imaginative setting with a familiar context. So for example, the restaurant, if you look at the restaurant menu here, there are unusual foods. Or if you look at the aliens, they're at the seaside, and we've taken House and Home and made it into a haunted house, for example. So it allows your children then to explore and be more creative in their learning. An area I think that quite a lot of network members probably haven't yet used is our cross-curricular area, and there are 19 themes in the cross-curricular area, and there are stories. The Dragons and Unicorns is at the bottom, as you can see, and if you attended that webinar, you'll have heard Robert talk about the comic strip story. Here's the other version of the story, and it's a narrated version, and you can see the audio file icon. Most of our stories now have audio PowerPoint with native speaker support, and where it's necessary, we've also added English sentences in very small script to support the teacher. I think the Stone Age is going to be put into our Year 6 ready-made Spanish scheme of work as well, and the dinosaurs could very easily replace the jungle animals in your Year 4 Summer 1 if you're interested in using them a different way. I'm going to now explain to you how creative children can be when given that support with a supported text. And in this instance, I'm showing you a jungle animals text. The jungle animal clip is one of our native speaker clips, the native speaker video. They are now in the body of the lesson plans, and you can click through to them. Here you can see Emily, and we do these in French and in Spanish. And in this instance, she's in the jungle, and she's going to explore the jungle with the children. I'll let you listen to a little bit of the clip.
Bonjour tout le monde, c'est Émilie. Aujourd'hui, on va marcher dans la jungle. On va marcher dans la jungle. Qu'est-ce que tu peux voir? Écoute et regarde. Écoutez, regardez. C'est un lion. Regardez, c'est un perroquet. Écoutez, c'est un serpent. Regardez, c'est un singe.
Emily, in the first instance, is encouraging the children to look, listen and practice the nouns. Within the body of these native speaker clips, there's also the opportunity for the children to perform activities with Emily, and you can see that there's some core structures there for communication. So what is it? It is. So the children then can create their own stories, and it links through to our Year 4 Summer 1 Walking in the Jungle unit, where we are looking at children being able to describe animals, jungle animals, their size, their colour, and then go on to walk in the jungle and pretend they're there and imagine they are seeing all these animals. Last year I was provided with some clips by a wonderful school that's within our network, that's in Ellesmere Port, where the children had a Spanish extravaganza for 3 days, and they had not only worked with our materials, but then they had performed and retold the story. And this is what Year 5 with the Spanish version had done in the school, and they were exploring their own environment to do this. They were in their own school playground in an area where there was little wood, and this is what they did.
Andando por la selva, ¿qué puedes ver? Escucha y mira. Alta y naranja. ¿Qué animal es? Un jirafa es. Andando por la selva, ¿qué puedes ver? Escucha y mira. Larga y verde, ¿qué animal es? Una serpiente es.
And so the children went on telling the story. Paul, the deputy head from the school, will be at our conference on the 21st of June, and will be giving a short presentation on how he developed these wonderful performances. The children were in both choral and individual speaking roles, and they were retelling the story as a class. And in my opinion, they were meeting some of the challenges we have in the levels that we want to get the children to by the end of Upper Key Stage 2. But how do you get there? Well, first of all, I think you really need to get ready for storytelling, and I'm sure a lot of you have got all these things already in your classrooms or in your teaching bags that you take with you to bring story to life. Maybe 2 of them are slightly unusual to you, one being the story magic wand, and we'll find out more, and the other being the photo frame. And exactly how I use that, I'll tell you more as we go through this webinar. I was once a drama teacher, as a performance teacher, and I taught English, and these particular ways of approaching exploring story are very important to me, and I think they are things that many of you will already use in your primary teaching and learning, and definitely in literacy, and they are also very transferable to languages. And just a couple that I'd like to look through before we begin to look at the particular stories that we're going to focus on. First of all, I think volume control. Joanne, one of our associate teachers, uses a dial, an imaginary dial that she turns up and she turns down, and she controls the children's volume with that imaginary dial. I think you can also control volume because some teachers are concerned about the noise level with just a raised or a lowered hand, as if it was part of a gauge or it was a conductor's hand. The magic story wand can be used to create characters, to give children a magical adjective, to change the beat or the rhythm of a story just by saying the word as you wave the magic story wand, or changing the voices or allowing for adaptation. The voices and characters is another area that brings a story to life. So let's change the story, let's make it loud, let's make it quiet, let's whisper, let's sing it, let's be persuasive, let's focus on pronunciation, intonation. So voices and character, again, is a huge device in being active and creative when looking at story. And you already saw Paul's children in Year 5 in chorus, and choral performance comes from Greek drama, and I feel it's really important that we engage with that with the children, because we're exploring drama techniques, but also everyone is joining in and everyone is supported, but there's also opportunities for individual performance. Another of these in the list that I'd like to mention is human dominoes. So very often I see it as a reading activity where children have got reading cards with a keyword on. They're stood at the front of the classroom, and the teacher asks other children to move them into the right order as they're standing in a random order. And you're looking at punctuation as well, capital letters, commas, question marks, full stops. I also think, though, we could look at this as a spoken activity where children could be in a physical mime. So they're miming a word, they're trying to portray the word facially, but another child has got to put the word to the mime and begin to build a sentence. And if it's based upon the context of a story and the content within the story, then the children have got something to start with to build the spoken word from the physical action. And again, the children can be reorganized and put into the right order as well, and so you can have a physical human dominoes game. And anticipation games just takes a story that little bit further. Again, the magic wand can be really important because you can pause the children with the magic wand. You can indicate that certain children need to think about a certain part of the story, but it allows us as well to anticipate what the next word might be, what the next phrase might be, how the character is going to say it, sing it, whisper it, etc. It allows the children through pictures to demonstrate by raising a picture which of a choice of, say, 3 animals they think is going to be heard next. It allows us to cover half of a picture and ask the children to anticipate what's missing in the picture and then reveal it, to write it on a mini board to show us that noun, that adjective, that verb, or that phrase, or that sentence, or potentially to write the end or speak the end of a sentence or of a short text. So anticipation games are really important as well in building this active and creative learning. I have many things in my magic bag when I'm looking at active and creative learning, and when I very first became a teacher, and that's a very long time ago, I was told to have a Mary Poppins bag and to have this magic bag that I could pull out tools and resources to help me, and I still believe in that today. There's a couple of things here that you may not have yourself or you may already have, and I just want to point a few out. Number one, there's a magical magnifying glass. It's a laminated piece of card, black card, with a hole cut in the middle, and the laminated, the hole is covered with the lamination, and therefore you can use it as a magnifying glass to move it across the text, to look at adjectival agreement, to look at verb endings, to look to see whether it's a masculine or feminine noun, whether it's plural or singular, to find out where the punctuation is, to rest upon words and look at phonemes and the grapheme and the phoneme, to look at sound spelling links. So a magical magnifying glass is always in my bag. I also now have magical reading glasses because you can have the star reader, so there's my star glasses. You can have the character reader, so there's my Rudolph glasses, for example. You can have the spot the key words glasses, so there's the one with all the lines in. You can ask a child to add sparkle with the glasses, so my star glasses would be really useful again. So magical reading glasses are a great way of encouraging children to bring story and text or sentences, words, adjectives, verbs, etc. to life. And the other one that I want to just mention is the action narrator. The action narrator goes back to the Greek drama that I mentioned before, where characters in Greek drama would wear masks. So it was a way of speaking without being seen. And I think that the action narrator mask is a really good idea for a child that's lacking confidence, but you would like them to have a go at speaking on their own, but they can speak behind the mask. I think as well it's another way of asking the child to speak and then reveal the face and show the emotion. And it's something that could be passed around the group, and different children could have the opportunity to be the action narrator. And I also, for retelling stories, have these tools, and I think these are really important as well. So I have, for example, with the mini beast in example 1, used the photo frame, but here I'm using it as a class to focus in on one key slide from the story that I've run off. I could cover this with a plain piece of paper and reveal slowly the words from pulling the paper down slowly so the children are reading with me and looking carefully. This works beautifully perhaps in pair work or on a table as well, where children have their own photo frame, and so they can focus more clearly and you can listen into what they're doing. I use as well the puppet prompts. So these are our mini beasts. They're actually stuck on pencils, and the pencils have got a colour wrapped around them. And I might call out a colour, and the child would have to come and put their puppet next to the right picture, so it was in the picture frame, and then we would read that phrase. So there'd be several picture frames, several different puppets. I call out a colour, they come out with their puppet if it's the right one, and we then are able to say that sentence as a class together, or the child on its own can read that sentence for me. Of course, the puppets then also make wonderful props for a puppet theatre, and I've seen some beautiful puppet theatres done by Key Stage 1 children, particularly with Anna, with the mini beasts and the sea creature stories that we have, where the whole class have told a story. It's then been video recorded and put on the community learning environment so that parents could see it as well after an assembly. And the story boxes, well, that's something I saw in a garden centre, to be honest. I saw Puss in Boots in the garden centre, and it was a jigsaw. I thought, what a wonderful way to ask the children to create the shape of the story, to put their story in, or put favourite words in from that story, or potentially to have it as a role play box at the side of the classroom that children can go to, bring out words, act out words with their friends, read out the sentences independently and revisit them. So those are 3 tools that I would be recommending you consider using. And for the manipulation of story and the investigation of structure, we can take it a little bit further. Here's my mini beast puppets again, and this time I'm using my magic story bag. Now, I could be using my story bag very simply to pull out characters, to show pictures or words, but here you've got coloured balls, and the coloured balls are linked to the colours wrapped around the pipe cleaners, the pencils that are stuck to the mini beasts. And the whole idea here is that I will randomly pull out a colour, or ask a child to pull out a colour. The child will say the colour in the target language. Another child will be holding the puppet, will bring the puppet to the front or show it in the circle. That child or all the children will then say the noun or the character's name, and then we will try to think of the sentence it belongs to and perhaps say the sentence together and then act it out. So that works really well. And it's just using your bag as a colour coded bag. So you could also have a colour that's linked to a sentence in the story, and we could make our own random ordered story and a new order for the story. Picture 2 just shows you the human dominoes or character sorting games, but being played in pairs with little envelopes. Children love envelopes and undoing them, but with the story from the text, from the story for them to unpack and use. And number 3 is something I've used for many, many years, and this is actually an old tube that I used to use, and it's a tube for viewing. It actually works really well with all sorts of spoken work. And you do find that some children rush to the end and don't remember everything that happened. And so what happens with this is, it's a tube with a slot inside. You put the key points of the story on the card in the order that they happen, and then the child feeds the story through the tube and can say to the partner either what it sees or can try to retell that sentence of the story to another child. And it could actually be passed around a group, so a child doesn't have to tell the whole story, and children could make these for themselves. And finally, just in your own role play area or on the table in a bag, random choice of pictures, and these are actually all from our own ready-made scheme of work, that the children could use to reinvent the story, take characters out, put their own characters in, and maybe mix and match the story up and give it to another child to tell, or match the words and the pictures together. They can make a story silly, they can make a story humorous, they can make it mystical, fantastical, and we're hanging it all off the story they've read in class with you or they've been exploring, and then we're putting it into new context, but we're taking those core communication sentences like what is it, it is, have you got, such and such pulled, etc., the turnip, but we're changing the story around and making the children more independent. Okay, so for the next part of the webinar, I would like to take you through 4 stories. I'm going to look at The Gingerbread Man, The Enormous Turnip, Pirate's Lost Treasure, and Come to the Beach. And they range from what I would say was stage 1 learners through to the end of stage 3, stage 4 learners. And we're looking at a story from year 3, year 4, and 2 that sit in year 5. And they are stories, if you're a network member, that you will probably either just about be starting to use, or stories that you're going to use in the summer term. I've picked the first one, Where Does the Gingerbread Man Live? Because I wanted to have a new context for practicing some very basic language. Where do you live? I live in. And so I picked the Gingerbread Man. I know as well that these could be taken out of the context of the scheme of work, and they could be used individually, and the activities I'm about to show would be helpful to anybody, no matter which stories you are using. And I have also been able to find some songs or some clips that I think would be appropriate to enhance the unit of work as you progress through it. So here you can actually see two of the clips. So there's a Gingerbread Man song from Shrek, and there's also a lovely French rhyme where the gingerbread man changes to a fruit and vegetables character, and I'll explain how I think we could use that. At the top you can see our gingerbread man. It's a paper cutout story, and I'm just going to take you in so you can see how it all sits together. So I'm now on the VLE, and I'm actually going through to the story on the VLE. If you are a network member, you would be able to access this by clicking on the lesson plan, and it would take you straight through to this PowerPoint. Here you can see the story of the gingerbread man, and you'll see that it's got audio in at all times. If you were to click on that, you would hear the native speaker voice. And as we go through it, you'll see that we're going to prepare you for the story first. So we are going to take you through the story, and we're going to get you to be the characters.
Le bonhomme de pain d'épices.
We're going to ask you to say it as if you sound like the character. We have cards as well that you'll have practiced with, so you will know who these characters are. And we're going to ask the children every time they meet the characters in the story to perform like the characters. There's a wonderful little rhyme, isn't there, in the Gingerbread Man about run as fast as you can. And because we have children in our schools who have other home languages, they may not know this little rhyme themselves in English. So we think it's pertinent to practice it in English too. So everybody then has a chance to practice it in French. And when we practice it in French, once again, we have the sound files. This is done in Spanish as well.
Cours, cours, aussi vite que tu le peux. Tu ne m'attraperas pas, je suis le bonhomme de pain d'épices.
And we're going to ask the children to add actions so they'll remember this, and we're going to perform it, and we're actually going to use it out of the context of the story at some point too. And then we begin to tell the story, and every slide has audio PowerPoint. To help teachers who are not as secure in the language, we will offer you as well the opportunity to have a transcript so you understand the story at the same time. When I was just thinking about the Gingerbread Man and putting the songs together, and I came across these two songs, I immediately thought of opportunities to explore beyond the story. So making gingerbread men would be an ideal example, and I think these gingerbread men could be target language gingerbread men. So our French gingerbread men could be in red, white and blue icing, and our Spanish gingerbread men could be in the colours of the Spanish flag, for example. And although this is a French rhyme, I think there's a lot of mileage in this as well for you in whichever language you are working in with the children, because you could create fruit printing of the gingerbread men. And so the gingerbread men could be fruit printed gingerbread men, and you could revisit the names of the fruits and vegetables. Now, if you're using our scheme of work, you'll know that we have, before this particular unit, we've been looking at the Hungry Giant, and we'll have done fruit and vegetables, so we can add word art as well to our gingerbread men. I mentioned before to you that the gingerbread man is all about where he lives, and we're bringing culture into our learning. And so our gingerbread men actually come from the French-Spanish border in Basque country, and here is a little village, and you've got all the photos and a little video if you're using our unit of work about this gingerbread man. And here's a gingerbread man sign for the shop, which inspired our gingerbread man hunt. And here, hot off the press from this weekend actually, is a little gingerbread man biscuit. But what's most important on here is our child-friendly map. Now, this is our lower key stage 2 child-friendly map made by Michelle, and we have an upper key stage 2 one. It's a Google Earth map. If we were to click on any of these places, we would go through to the Google Earth app, and we would go straight into Paris and we'd see Paris, or we could visit one of the different places. So we could program it to go and visit the village where the gingerbread men are made to. But the children are exploring France at the same time. We could perhaps also create new names for our gingerbread men. So we found out that Goxo is the name that is given to this little gingerbread man, and it means sweet. So perhaps our children could create their own names. We're practicing the phrase, where do you live? The question is, where do you live? And I live, so the question and the answer. So here's some dice that some children made for me. It's a very simple game, and the whole idea is if you land on a gingerbread house, you can say a place in your own country where you live. So for instance, here it would be in England. I live in Warrington, for example. But if you land on the French map, which happens 3 times, then you've got to say a place on the French map that you've explored with the teacher, or another place that you know in France. So we could have some map investigation and some geography linked to our language learning. We are building with Where Do You Live and I Live on our personal information, which we're progressing through right through the year 3. And here are 3 examples, indeed 4 examples, of how we are working with the children to develop their personal information, and we're using our gingerbread people as our way forward. We have a gingerbread girl and boy, and they're our puppets, and our aim is to get them to speak to each other. So we have slides where you'll put on the gingerbread voice, and the children are going to practice with the native speaker, and they're going to pretend to be gingerbread men and create the gingerbread man performance. We now have conversation buddy PowerPoints throughout the whole of the scheme of work, where your children will re-practice and revisit all those little phrases and questions and answers that they have been learning as they build step on step with conversation. So we can use that to get ready. Then we can do our performances, and we now have consolidation sheets, and this one is spelling. It's muddled up spelling. The children have got to unmuddle as the phrase for I live in, and in this instance, I live in Paris. I think the activities I'm showing you, you could generate for yourself as well if you're not within the network, but the materials and resources are available within our network. There's a great opportunity for PE within the Gingerbread Man because of run as fast as you can, and you are encouraged to think of as many different ways to say the rhyme as possible within the lesson. But then you can take it into drama, you can take it into PE, you can see how long it takes you to run the rhyme, to skip the rhyme, to hop the rhyme, to jump the rhyme, to dance the rhyme. You can make it into a dance or a performance, and you could use it in the playground as a tag game. So the children could use this rhyme, and then when they finish, run off and see how many the gingerbread man can catch, or how many gingerbread men the fox can catch, etc., or the old man could catch, etc. And Robert, one of our associate teachers who leads the creative webinars that we hold once a term now, is very keen on seeing links between languages and literacy, and so am I. And this was something he was talking to me about synonyms for says. And because this particular story uses the voice of the gingerbread man saying run as fast as you can, I thought, well, let's see what we could do if we added spoken synonyms. So here are my strips of paper that I've added. Says, laughs, sings, and whispers. And the whole idea is, can you say it in the voice of the gingerbread man? So how would the gingerbread man say these if he was laughing it, if he was whispering it, if he was singing it? And we're making that spoken link for the children that you can then revisit back in literacy about the fact you don't always need to write says or said. You can write laughs or laughed, sings or sang. So we're making a small link, but a valuable link for teachers to use within literacy. And we can then become real actors, because our fox wants the gingerbread man to jump on his back, to jump on his nose, etc., so he can eat him before he gets to cross the river. So that's a real opportunity to become actors, get nasty voices, get sharp voices, get the voices of the fox, maybe act it out. And again, using synonyms, change the way that the fox would say the phrase. So we can listen to it in French, and then we can say, okay, how would he laugh it? How would he cry it? Can we say it in that way? And so we're taking the children through the opportunity of style of voice, of facial expressions, of being able to convey a message. And again, we're still looking at synonyms and reinforcing spoken synonyms. I pointed out the gingerbread man and the fact it said that the shop was under the porch in the pictures from the village. And Andrea created a gingerbread man hunt, and this is fresh off the press from this week with children she's been teaching. We are going to create this little PowerPoint in French and in Spanish now, but Andrea's created it in French, and it's a position of the gingerbread man. She then wrote some clues, and the children had to investigate it and find out where the gingerbread men were in the class. And those children found out there were 5 gingerbread men on the teacher's chair, which they were all very excited about, and then they created their own clues using the writing frame that Andrea had with the reading document. I think this sets us up beautifully for a gingerbread man hunt around the school and for taking photographs and coming back. If you saw last year our work with Where's Wally, Joanne put Wally all around the school with year 6, so year 6 could set it up for year 3. You could have links across age groups here. There's a wonderful opportunity for art portraits, so painting the gingerbread man sitting on a chair, under the table, at the door, next to a table, etc. So we can do portraits in the style of and use artists that we're looking at in our primary classroom and our primary learning. We could make sugar paper collage with this and make a wonderful display. And we could just ask the children to create tableau. So 4 or 5 children in one picture in tableau form, becoming the gingerbread man, sitting, standing, kneeling underneath an item, take a photograph and then bring it to life, maybe using a voice app so the children can speak, or importing written word on it and putting it into pic collage. So those are possibilities with the gingerbread man. And I think they're transferable to lots of other stories that you might like to use. The enormous turnip is the second story that I'm going to talk about, and this is in our Year 4 Summer 2. Once again, you get the full story, you get preparation for it. If you're in the network, you can click through directly from this particular PowerPoint, or you can go and find it in Year 4 Summer 2. And I, again, was looking for songs to fit with this, and I'm going to play this little song because I loved this one when I found it.
Sème, sème dans le jardin, les petites graines, sème, sème dans le jardin, sème, sème bien. Sème, sème dans le jardin, les petites graines, sème, sème dans le jardin, sème, sème bien. Mais si tu veux que ça pousse, il ne suffit pas de semer.
I think that story would allow us then to investigate growing things. I've sat it in our weather unit because it's about having the weather, the sunshine, the rain to grow the seeds, and it's all about a farmer, isn't it, or an old man planting a turnip. I think that we could therefore link it through to science, and we could work with it on science, and I'm sure a lot of you perhaps have already used the enormous turnip, but these are different ways that I would also like to use it. So one of the ways that I think we've not explored before is probably active and creative listening. This is using multi-link. So I asked Claire this week with some children to work on the idea of multi-link and the story, so I could demonstrate it to you. So here's your multi-link, and this is for your active listening. In the active listening, the different coloured multi-link represents a different part of the sentence that the children are listening for. Here, the orange is the verb they're listening for, and the green is the turnip. So every time they hear the turnip, they were asked to place the multi-link on top of each other. And every time they thought they heard the verb, they were asked to place the multi-link on top of each other. Really simple, but active listening, listening in. And then we took it and we said, well, okay, we build a block and tell you that blue is the old man and orange is the verb pull and green is the word for turnip. Can you now give your friend a sentence that they've got to recreate? And so the children, or they were given a sentence by the teacher as well, and the children then had to speak it or write the sentence. But then you could add challenge, and you could give children more than one sentence and then ask them to put them in the right order by identifying in which order the multi-linked sentences went. You could also then ask them, if they had several multi-linked sentences that had been prepared in front of them, to decide which one they can hear when you played the story, and they'd have to hold up the right multi-linked sentence. Or you could ask them to read a strip of paper and decide which of the multi-linked sentences matched the sentence that you read aloud, and they could then spot the sentence and make sure that the other child next to them had got the same answer. And you could give them multi-linked sentences that had got a missing block, so they would have to identify that the blue was missing for the old man, for example, or the orange was missing for the verb. So maybe there are ways there that we've not explored before that's using items within the classroom and that could allow you to explore listening, speaking, reading and writing in a more active way linked to the story. The enormous turnip is about characters, isn't it, trying to pull up this enormous turnip. And it's a story that children are very familiar with, and probably from Key Stage 1 they're familiar with it, but I think as well there's an opportunity for us to explore it in a different way. So for example, we could go and have a look at different fruit and vegetables, an opportunity here to link with food tasting, and probably for some children tasting fruit and vegetables they've never tasted before, but also going on a geography exploration. Which fruit and vegetables come from the target language country or grow in warm climates? And here I've just put a little reminder to network members that we have language support right throughout the VLE, and you could go and find the sound files and the audio clips to play to the children and to use with your classes, so that you could use different vocabulary if you didn't know it already. We can change as well the characters. So these are some maths that I have that I got from Hobby World. With my magic wand, change the story, and instead of the normal characters, it could be jungle animals who are pulling up the fruit and vegetables, and the children will have met jungle animals in Year 4 Summer 1, so it would fit nicely with Summer 2. But also, maybe it's not about pulling up a fruit and vegetable. Maybe it's because the crocodile's got stuck and we need to pull the crocodile, or we need to pull the snake, or we need to pull the giraffe because he's got his head stuck in a tree. So you could use a picture to encourage the children then to think of a different storyline and then to perform it with maths for the class as a spoken text. But you can be using prior learning, that's the jungle animals, and now in a new context and a change of setting. So that took me a little bit further in my journey. And again, I've got my cards. You've got your role play area with your cards where children can make up their own random story around the enormous turnip by just moving cards and them talking it through with their friend, or saying it to their friend, or just on their own talking it through to themselves. You can add new items that the children are going to have to go and find. So here there will be fruit and vegetables that they already knew from the work we've done around the Hungry Giant, but now they've got to go and use bilingual dictionaries to find out the word for a mango or for a coconut, and they can change the context of it and use the jungle animals. Or you could be even more creative, and you could make a pillar word sentence. So it's where the sentence is written from top to bottom. The children can just read it, they can then mime it, they can act it out. They could potentially dance it with a group of other children, so the whole line came to life as different characters in physical movement. They could draw it, so they could draw it as a totem pole from top to bottom with the words and in the nouns and the verbs in the right order. They could add adjectives to those nouns, so then they could paint it, and they could therefore change that pillar sentence into a sentence they want of their own. So those are some more potential ideas. Remember, you're going to be able to go back and visit this again because we'll have the PowerPoint to look at this. And the idea of a concertina story chain was something else that I think we could possibly look like. The children put together their own concertina story, so they put in their own pictures, they put them in their own order, they can give them as a little envelope or folded up concertina to a friend, and then a friend can retell the story to somebody else, and they can bring it to life, and they can become a human freeze frame in a group with somebody else's concertina story, and then add narration and add spoken speech bubbles. The spoken speech bubbles can develop a little bit further and say how each of the character feels. I'm sure the characters are feeling tired, or they might be feeling happy, or they might be feeling angry that they've had to get involved. So you can add emotions, or they can just give their names. They could just say hello. They could add numbers, because it could be counting as they pull, or commands for stand up or sit down, etc. And so you can bring it to life with drama and performance. And the final thing with the enormous turnip is, well, let's have a mystery. So there's a carrot in the classroom. It could be anything, it doesn't have to be a carrot. And what's happened is you've got this carrot, children, it's in the classroom. I don't know who brought it here, but I've got some clues from witnesses and they're written clues. Can you solve the mystery for me? And when you have, do you think you could create your own CCTV cartoon strip, either as a physical depiction of the story or as a written depiction with pictures and writing in a cartoon strip? Great activity. You can see we're going to have to use our magical reading glasses to read the sentences. We might want to use our magical magnifying glass to bring them up on the big screen so we can all check that everybody's agreeing with each other. And these are descriptions that our children will be able to do because they've done animals in year 3 and they've done describing monsters or aliens or unicorns or jungle animals in year 4. So they've already met most of the words here. Indeed, if they've done the unicorns, they'll have met Maine, and if they haven't, they can use bilingual dictionaries to find it, and then they can make up their own mysteries with different fruits and vegetables, different characters, and small, short descriptions or longer descriptions, depending on the ability of the children, either working individually, in pairs, or as groups supported by a teaching assistant. I think there's lots of fun in this. I'd love to see what you do with this. Pirates Lost Treasure has been with us for a very long time, and I remember Karen Rowlands and Cinnamon Brow having a Pirates Lost Items hunt around the school with big pictures and with performances, with reports back to the class, and it was based on our story about lost pirates treasure. Again, I've now taken it and put it into the ready-made scheme of work in French and Spanish, and we've got native sound files. And it's a lovely story about trying to find lost pirates' gold. Just where has it gone? I found some clips that you could use to support you. So we've got Jack and the lost gold, and we've got also this particular one that you'd recognise because it's really Peter Pan. So they're clips that you can play to the children, and you can use them for the children to join in and get the atmosphere of the story. But then we are going to be pirates. There's a story PowerPoint which takes us through preparing to be pirates, and we have to read all of these in our best pirate voices. There's repetition games we can play with this. There's freeze frames. There's miming what we see. There's mirror minds where we'll both put our hats on at the same time and say the words at the same time, but one partner is leading and the other has got to follow the actions. There's adding commands for put on and take off or look for, etc. Lots of ways we can build more into getting ready to be a pirate. And then there's the lesson plans that I would have explained to you, have got all the links in them so that you can read through. We're going to play a card game where we don't want to be the pirate in a quiz swap card game. We're going to play a board game where we're going to be practicing the key communication phrases: where is, have you got, it is, not wanting to land on schools because you're going to get sent back to the beginning. And we're going to be able to develop this story with the children because they've got more language to do so. If you have a quick look here, here is the Pirates lesson plan. And the Pirates lesson plan, as you can see, has got 3 activities as normal. It's got its DFE attainment target, and it's got the level the children are working at. So we're moving beyond just any words or familiar words, but we're listening for specific words and phrases. You've got all your click-through links to all the resources. You've got more challenge now in the level the children are working at, because we want to read and understand the main parts and points and some detail from this story. And then we've got pronunciation as our objective with the lost pirates treasure. And again, everything is click straight through from. So if you're a network member, you've got the lessons ready there for you to use. I've found some more songs that you could use that you might like to use, and hopefully help you to make this into more than just one lesson, but not just part of Year 5 Spring 2 and Fancy Dress, but maybe a whole focus for yourself within your school. The lessons afford us a chance to look at pair work and asking and answering questions, and these are some very simple activities which again are transferable. So in this instance we're looking for the pirate's treasure, These objects have been cut out and can be placed onto these paper speech bubbles with question marks, and the children can be in charge of these and play them as pair activities, challenging each other to ask the question. So that's what you can see in picture 1. In picture 2, there's colour coding. So that is listening and deciding, was it the red or the blue question I heard? So that can be teacher-led, it could be table-led, it could be listening to the native speaker, it could be listening to the story. And again, the objects can be swapped around. In picture 3, here you've got a question and a prop. So the question's going to be asked, and one child asks that question, the other child has got to come up with the answer and decide where, with prepositions of place, the parrot is going to be put: on top of, underneath, next to the pirate's hat, etc. And finally, the picture 4 is, there's the answer, make up the question, make up the answer, speak it, write it, perform it, and potentially make word art sculptures of the question and the answer. So you could write in the question on the objects, you could write in the nouns for the objects, you could add colours, etc., and create some creative, attractive artwork based around words and sentences, questions and answers. And then you're ready for your school's pirate treasure hunt. And finally, with the pirate, what about taking on the character of a pirate? Here's my little photo frame again, and this time all the props around the outside. It's an opportunity for selfies, as if it was a photo booth. It's an opportunity for written speech bubbles that the children can write so they can have their photographs taken. It's an opportunity for you to record the children speaking, asking and answering questions. It's also a possibility for other children to write the sentences that the child in the photo booth has got to perform and got to get the right objects for. And you could have one child as the author, one child is the actor, and work with the children on their strengths and their weaknesses. So if a child needs to develop the way they write the language, then they could be the child being the author. And the child that needs to develop speaking, then they could be the child that's the actor. You could take it further, and rather than just asking and answering questions, you could describe the pirate in the first person singular, so I am the pirate and my name, or you could become a famous pirate. And if you go on Wikipedia, you can find names of very famous French and Spanish pirates that would have been all around the Mediterranean area of France and Spain, that the children could become and perform. And then you've got photo booth pictures for classroom display. And finally, I just want to look at how you've gone from simple repetitive story with the gingerbread man and replacing nouns. You've gone through to your own class mystery with the enormous turnip, through to create a description of a pirate, or asking and answering questions and looking for lost treasure. And then here is our Year 5 Summer 2 persuasive text. The persuasive text has been in our ready-made scheme of work, and prior to that in our just general scheme of work for a long time. I think it sits beautifully with literacy, but recently we have now reinvented the PowerPoint story, and we've used our alien family. If you've been using our materials for a long time will know that we have got an Aliens at the Seaside animated story, but this is a new PowerPoint to bring in a new context, which is persuading people to go to the seaside. Here are 3 wonderful clips again that I've found, 1 in Spanish and 2 in French, that you might want to use to set the scene with the children. I particularly like the Spanish one because of it's mature enough, I think, for your Year 5 and your Year 6 children. It'll be one you could use. And all of these pictures just shout out to me, you need to use green screen if you can. Now, I know that Michelle just went to IKEA and bought a green piece of material and uses that to green screen on. It's very simple to use, and then you just need to download the app, import the picture, and the children can perform. The whole idea of this unit is that at the end of it, they will have made a TV advertisement, come to the beach, and we will guide you through lesson by lesson. You can see parts of the persuasive text here, and this is in Spanish. Everything within the PowerPoint has got audio files, and you'll play games with it. You will move on to using a modal verb to be more persuasive about why you'd really want to go to the beach. So you can go swimming, you can play football, you can have an ice cream, you can sunbathe. And then there's a whole lesson focusing on the art of persuasion before the children go off and have 2 lessons in group work, creating their TV advertisements. To help them, there is some work around, oh, I do like to be beside the seaside, and giving reasons why, and they'll be working as a team. And your team should be of differentiated ability and differentiated skills, so they all bring something to these lessons to create your persuasive text. Ultimately, they'll be describing people, places, things, orally and in writing, and they'll be exploring sentence structure and extending sentences and using conjunctions. And this is a very easy game that you would be able to use. Again, it's a very transferable game to other story contexts and other story content. You can see the first picture is a slide that I showed before from Come to the Beach, and you can see there are pictures around the outside. Most items will be familiar to the children from the content within the story, but the kite and potentially the spade and the bucket will not be familiar. And forgive my drawings, but these are my drawings here. On the reverse side of these are words. You can see all the words here, but the children have to, first of all, work out what all the items are, then ask for the item and ask for it to be turned over. So they ask for the item, it gets turned over. And here you can see 2 have been revealed. And bit by bit, they've got to try and anticipate, oh, here's anticipation, what the sentence is that you are asking the children to reveal with you. They're going to have to use persuasive voices. They can use mini whiteboards to jot down their ideas. They can work with partner or in a team. They can work as a challenge, so girls against boys or teams against teams. They get points for how persuasive they are when they speak the words, and they're going to have to then start to work out how, when you've revealed all the sentence, they're going to put it together in one long persuasive sentence which has got a conjunction. Children could create their own games with this and look at how you break down the components of the sentence to create the sentence. Within the body of the unit, you are going to be exploring sentence structure, and some of you will know already how much I love my sandcastle sentences, but they are also now in the lesson plans. And the whole idea with these is that when you write a sentence, you're building it, you're constructing it, and you're thinking about it, and it's not necessarily the writing that's as important as the construction of it, because writing is the scribed form of the thought you've had in your head that you've put into a sentence. We look at ice creams in year 4, and because we talk about going to the beach and it could be fun because you can have an ice cream, it sat very well with designing our own ice cream sentences, but you could use it with persuasive text too. The different components of the sentence are colour coded, so you can see that the flags are blue and they are personal pronouns, and the verbs are orange, and the 2 sizes of the yellow blocks, one is for noun and one is for an adjective. And what you're going to do is you're going to put together the sentence, ask the children to help you to construct it, and you might start with 1 sandcastle, but ultimately to make 2 sandcastles you've got to find your capital letter and your full stop, and you're going to need a conjunction, which is the bridge in the middle. I tend to give them 2 conjunctions and but, so they can see how they can make a positive or a negative sentence. Emily took this one step further and had a French beach sandcastle building competition, which sat so beautifully with the cultural aspect of what really does happen on the beach in the summertime, particularly in France. And these, as you can see, stand up, so they were used for display. I've nearly finished now, and the final thing I would like to add is a challenge. And I know that the associate teachers will have been listening to this, so here's my challenge. It's a seaside spin on Conscience Alley. It's an environment alley. It's children in teams. You ask the children to use nouns and adjectives and verbs and to think how they're linked to the beach. Each of the children, there's 6 of them, 5 of them stand in a circle, take their favourite noun or their favourite adjective or their favourite verb with the most persuasive voice and their action. You could have it written on a card so the child can see the target language, and the child in the middle has got to go around the circle, listen, observe and look, and then on the mini whiteboard doodle their reaction to what they hear and then show their postcard to the other children. And it's an emotional response to what they've heard and seen. A game that can be played over again, and each child can take their turn to be in the centre of the circle. So there's a challenge for you at the end of this webinar. Finally, if you would like to find out any more about ourselves, here are the details to help you. And let me just remind you that it's our conference on the 21st of June. Premium members get a free place. Everybody else is incredibly welcome. I know that Natalie Paris is listening in tonight, and she came last year, and I think she would agree there was quite a buzz around the event. So we look forward to seeing you, and do feel free to follow us on Facebook and our Primary Languages Network Facebook, because we'll share the ideas we've talked about tonight. Thank you very much, and that is the end of the webinar. Should there be any questions, if you want to send them to me, then we can probably answer them.